80 degrees outside. I think the pool and the beach is pretty much a goal for the year. Shout out to all the young gentlemen and young ladies that started school today, first day of school here in New York City. Nerve wracking for me. My nephew began his first day of high school today, so a lot of anxiety I had going on, but hopefully he had a good day. And man, we got a jam packed show for you guys today. Um, it seems like as the weather changed and those leaves turn their different colors to that nice autumn crisp look, it just means one thing. That means football is on the horizon. And for the college fans, we had college football that came out. I'm a Miami guy. I kind of like the Willis McGahee and Ken Dorsey back in those early 2000 championship games. So I haven't really followed it as much as when those guys played, and then ultimately they ended up being studs in the NFL. But man, we got a good NFL season upon you guys. We're gonna also talk about baseball and just the horrendous job that umpire did during that game yesterday. So, with that said, let's get right into it. So, again, there's been a big 12-game stretch that's going on for this New York Yankees team. Right now, they currently hold the first wild card spot. There's three wild card spots in each league. The Yankees hold the top. Boston is right behind them, and obviously we cannot assume that Toronto. What it seemed like last week, Toronto was going to run away with the division. Is not necessarily the case no more. During that 7-game winning streak, the Yankees were able to captivate victories against the lower end teams like the Nationals and the White Sox. But listen, yeah, you beat up on the team on the losing teams, but hey, whatever's in your schedule, you still got to go out there and play the game. So the Yankees were able to win those games and ultimately are now faced with this big 12-game stretch, which starts in Houston. They will start a 3-game series at the stadium on Friday. Huge 3-game series, which ultimately may decide who wins the American League East when they go against the Toronto Blue Jays. Then they head to Detroit to play the arguably the best team in the AL right now in the Tigers. And then we all know how those Yankee Red Sox series can be. After that Detroit series, they'll fly up to Boston to play the Red Sox for another 3. So, listen, I try not to be biased. It's so easy when you get gravitated by sports in the game and you like, no, that was inaccurate or that was a bad call. But when something is just so damn obvious, you just gotta point it out. And normally I don't do my due diligence when it comes to umpires. I just hope they called a good game. But I had to do my law and order on this guy who umpired the game. And I think Major League Baseball has to do some sort of an investigation on this Brian Walsh fella. So in yesterday's contest, there was 21 missed calls as far as balls and strikes during the whole game. 15 went against the Yankees. Now, as a fan, what are you supposed to think? It starts looking a little too obvious once you make one or two bad calls. And I mean, these weren't just surefire calls like, okay, it could have gone either way. These were just really, really horrible calls. Like, we're talking about strikes being thrown right by the ankles. I mean, come on now. The strike zone is right there. You got to throw it over the plate, knee, belt high. I don't know what the hell this guy was doing. And it's so frustrated. And again, I'm trying not to be biased because you want to be able – it sort of takes the fun out of the game when you're making those inaccurate calls. I mean, geez, this could have been a playoff game. I mean, imagine a playoff game ending like that, with Jazz Chisholm there, and there's a 3-2 count right there. This, that could have been a recipe. But, and then, you got to give managers, I always feel like, give managers the benefit of the doubt to at least refute their calls. He had such a quick ejection trigger. I mean, he throws out Devin Williams. For those who don't know, Devin Williams has been in the league, I want to say about maybe 6 years now. He's never been thrown out of a game. So for the most part, he has kept his emotions together when it comes to inaccurate calls. For some reason, he gets thrown out. And granted, it's so easy to say, oh, these inaccurate calls change the course of the game. Listen, we're not gonna keep Devin Williams off the hook. He did not pitch too well. Granted, those couple of batters that he had, which are 2-1 counts as opposed to 1-2 counts, those can change the aspect of the games. And for the most part, he made good pitches within those batters. They just wasn't called correctly. And it says it right there. And supposedly this umpire is a picture friendly umpire. Not last night he wasn't. I don't know what I saw last night, but it was so bad. It was so disgusting. It was so dreadful. And this is coming from a baseball fan. Forget about, the colors that I bleed for 20 plus years. This just was not good officiating from the entire crew chief and the umpire. Calls were going inaccurate on both sides. But again, the stats were there from the calculations that I was able to look up on. 21 missed calls, balls and strikes, 15 going against the Yankees. Soon as Devin Williams got called, obviously as a manager, you're going to defend your player. And Aaron Boone, who's not afraid to tell the umpires every now and then about how he feels, he got ejected out the game. That was a quick ejection because you can just see him set his piece and then he was walking. And it always seemed like there was a stare down, which was initiated by the umpire. And then, I guess Boone had something, a little bit to say after that. And then the trigger was there. He just got ejected. It's bothersome because, the Yankees were down. First of all, the Yankees were up 3-0 that game. They were in a predicament. Then they were up 4-1. They had a chance. Obviously, the Yankees had a minor implode with the bullpen. That's been the Yankees' Achilles heel all year. So, again, the imploding of the bullpen is not new to Yankee fans, especially this year. So they definitely have to find that out, get it together. Has it been better lately? It has. It has, but you got to be able to correlate a bridge to get to David Bednar, who seems like is taking over the closer's role for the New York Yankees. But I'm not sure if I would have put Devin Williams in that situation. Whatever's going on with Devin Williams, I don't know what's going on. It's not the Milwaukee Devin Williams I got. He's got a 5.60 ERA this year. Probably one of the weirdest statistical seasons from a relief pitcher that I've seen in some time because there was a stretch where he had about 21 appearances and he had an ERA under 2. And then there's games where he's just erratic. He can't throw strikes. He's a little over reliant with the changeup where it becomes predictable. And, you're throwing changeup at the changeup and you're basically surprising people with a fastball occasionally. Eventually, these batters are going to sit down, time the changeup, and then feast on changeups. So I don't know what's going on, but please, Aaron Boone, please, guys, share this, get this around. Let's see if it gets to Aaron Boone. Do not put Devin Williams in any more high leverage situations. I thought long and hard about this, and the stats prove exactly what I'm about to say. It seems, for whatever reason, for the time being now, for the most part, he's just a better pitcher now in low leverage situations. I'm talking about when the Yankees are up 7-2. It just seems like he thrives like that. So let's just call him low lev Dev. Because that's pretty much what he's been all year. A pitcher who excels in low leverage situations. So we cannot put low lev Dev in these big time situations because I want to say from now until the end of the month, these are critical games for the Yankees to win, especially with this 12-game stretch. It's tough because you ultimately have to decide whether you're going to put Camilo Duvall or you're going to put low lev Dev. Duvall has had his shares of struggles since he's been in a Yankee uniform, but in that situation, are you really going to risk putting in Weaver? Weaver had a subpar inning in the 7th. So I get Boone's thinking where he wasn't trying to put Weaver in a situation where he could have been needed for tonight's game. So you put him for 1 inning. Um, I'm not sure how much the team trusts Mark Leiter Jr. in those situations. So again, it's all about picking and choosing as far as where to put these players in these certain spots. Obviously, it's a tie game, so you want to be able to ultimately. I guess they put Williams in that situation, hoping that he could solidify the inning. Hopefully, the Yankees could score a run or two in that top half inning, which would then lead it to David Bednar. But obviously, it didn't get to that situation and whatnot. Yankees did make a run, and with a couple of outs that they had in the ninth inning, Cody Bellinger, who's had a pretty solid year for the Yankees, hits a 3-run shot, which ultimately cut the lead to 1. But then again, the story of last night's game was that 3-2 pitch to Jazz Chisholm, which was nowhere near the damn strike zone, which ultimately decided the game. And for my calculations, as far as those 21 missed calls, that's pretty much equivalent to a run and a half based on what the Yankees could have done with players on base. So again, we get Major League Baseball. I don't want to call people out. I don't want to wish ill will on anybody's job. Again, everybody has a bad day at the job. I have bad days and stuff like that. But again, in crucial games like that, at that moment in the game, it's just unacceptable. You look at that 3-2 pitch, it was nowhere near the strike zone. And honestly, the aspect could have been changed a lot. That 3-2 pitch, if it's actually called a ball, you're bringing in Giancarlo Stanton, who's arguably one of the Yankees' hottest pitchers within the past month, at least within the month of August. With Jazz Chisholm's speed, let's say he steals a base and whatnot. Usually, when it's the ninth inning, especially from a closer aspect, they usually lock in as far as getting those final 3 outs. There's not really that much attention being thrown towards first base as far as base stealing. So you could easily have a situation where Chisholm steals second, Stanton finds a nice pitch up in the zone, and the game's ultimately tied, or he hits it over the wall. Yankees take a 9-8 lead. You bring in Bednar from the ninth, and then we're talking about the Yankees taking a 2-0 series lead in this best of 3. But obviously that did not happen. It's a lot of dreadful calls in that game, and I do think from a baseball standpoint, as far as what's going on around the league, because, I do take time to watch other games and stuff like that, especially when Sunday Night Baseball is around and they have different teams that play outside of, the Yankees and the Mets and whatnot. And I've seen some calls that really justified the outcome of a game. And, especially if you're in a pennant race or a wild card race, and one call justifies whether somebody hops on first place or is eliminated from the wild card spot or ultimately ruins their chance of a playoff spot. This is something that I believe should be very alarming to Major League Baseball. I think it's definitely something that they really need to sit down and ultimately take a look at, because it was so I couldn't even sleep last night. It was just so it was bad. It was bad. I don't know how much experience this umpire has, Brian Walsh. They usually announce that just right before the top of the first inning. I missed about an inning and a half of the game, so I wasn't sure. Usually they'll tell you whether an umpire, how much service the umpire has, whether he's a pitcher or hitter friendly. They usually give you that information, which I think is glorifying for fans to know, just to get a input of how the game is going to be called. But it was just a lot of bad calls, and who's to say whether that game will be different? And listen, if you're looking at the other side of the coin, okay, let's say Jazz does get on. The tying runner is at first. Stanton gets a bat, swings at a couple of pitches that are outside the zone in the third. Maybe he flies out. Maybe he strikes out. Game ends anyway. But it's hard to dictate that when the game ends on a really, really bad call. I can't justify that enough. So for the life of me, I really think Major League Baseball in its entirety, just not that game in particular, but I do think that the way that game ended and the several missed calls that were made by that particular umpire, I think it needs to open the eye of Major League Baseball as far as balls and strikes. Um, I did see a lot of people under the comments and stuff like that on social media, and even people that reached out to me about them being a I guess sort of a instant replay system that should be embedded. I don't want that at all. I mean, as far as like whether a runner out and safe, that's good, but these challenges were made to speed up the game, especially the pitch clock. But sometimes, a play is too long, and then you're waiting 6-7 minutes for them to call a good call or a bad call, and it's ultimately slows down the game. So imagine if a batter is up to plate, and then the first pitch is a strike, and it was clearly not in the zone, and then they're calling for a challenge. It slows up the game because you got to look at the accurate spot of where the pitch was caught at and whatnot. And I'm not sure if Major League Baseball is going to go that route. I don't know the solution other than to make sure these umpires are equipped to umpire to be behind the plate. I'm not sure, at least right now. Maybe I'll have it in next week's episode or maybe right after this episode as far as a solution that will ultimately make the game a lot cleaner and a lot better. Because again, let's just say that these two teams were tied for the final wild card. That game ends like that. Yankee Nation would have gone insane. And I've seen a lot of negativity going against Jazz Chisholm on social media, and I mean, listen, guys. There's a difference between being contenders and pretenders as far as fans go. If you're a fan that ultimately dislikes the Yankees, okay, that's fine. Because I'm pretty sure half of Massachusetts dislikes anybody that wears navy and white. I get it. I get it. It's been a rivalry for many years, but again, let's make this about baseball and let's make this about what's right. And an umpire missing 21 calls and 15 going against the road team. Come on, this that's when something becomes a little bit too obvious, a little bit too obvious. So I think that's something that Major League Baseball needs to clean up, and hopefully they'll get that sorted out with. But they do. The Yankees have an opportunity to salvage the series. They have Carlos Rodon on the mound today. Carlos Rodon is 15-game winner so far for the Yankees, and he struggled a little bit to begin the month of August, but the last two starts, he's been nothing short of sensational. So if the Yankees can get some leverage from Carlos Rodon, and ultimately the bats will come alive, Houston will be countering with Javier. So Javier has been a pretty decent pitcher, especially against the Yankees. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. The lineup, as of this moment, has not been posted, but I'm assuming that John Carlos Stanton will not be in the lineup. I think what the Yankees are trying to do is we got to remember, even though he came up as an outfielder in his younger days, I think as far as every day, and this is quite obvious for Yankee fans who actually sit there and watch the game in entirety and just know the players from a general standpoint as far as what they're able to provide from us. John Carlos Stanton cannot play the field every day anymore. Those days are behind him. So I think playing him for 2 days, versing him the third game, because there's still no definitive word as far as when Aaron Judge is ready to get back into the field, because I know he's from the reports that I've read, he's gone through throwing programs and things of that nature. But again, we're talking about your MVP player, your franchise player, anything regarding the elbow, it could be the season for the Yankees. I'll be honest with you. I mean, that's how valuable this guy is. So, from a safety standpoint, I do get the organization as far as protecting Judge, as far as protecting the elbow. From a fan standpoint, I can understand the frustration as far as not seeing him on the field because it ultimately keeps him in the designated hitter role, which is usually occupied by John Carlos Stanton. And then it's like, if Judge is playing DH, you ultimately can't put Stanton every day. So you take in Stanton's bat out the lineup, and you're ultimately leaving Judge there as a DH until the organization ultimately feels that he is at least close to 100%. I don't think elbow injuries and stuff like that. I always feel elbow injuries are the same, not the same, but as far as like the impact that it could have, like knee injuries. I know hamstring and oblique injuries are, I hate to use the word popular, but they're more common nowadays. So anything pertaining to the elbow attached to the UCL, you definitely have to keep in mind because the UCL is, in my opinion, a 2-year rehab, even though 1 year of a lost season, and usually these players come back at the end of the year, and it usually takes some time for them to come back to form. So I think for the most part, for the Yankees are doing the right thing as far as shielding Judge from hitting the field, but ultimately there has to be a decision made. I would hope at least by the end of the month as far as whether they feel comfortable throwing Judge out there and right field. You will have Grisham or Bellinger. Or probably more than likely it'll be Grisham because Grisham is having a career year for the Yankees. And just to touch on Grisham a little bit, he was considered a throw-in in the Juan Soto trade last year. We all know about the glove. He's a sensational fielder. He's a former Gold Glove winner, but I don't think anybody expected this. I mean, he's batting close to 270. He's he's gonna be he's gonna be another player in the Yankee lineup with 30 home runs. I believe he's at 27 right now. So there's no, bearing God forbid any injury. There's no reason why we can't see Trent Grisham hitting 30 home runs for the New York Yankees. And yeah, it's just you obviously gonna have his bat in the lineup, so he'll probably play center, and Bellinger will probably play left field. So you pretty much, if Judge is able to come back, you probably that'll be your outfielding core right there, and then you'll be able to have John Carlos Stanton on an everyday basis if he's a designated hitter. So I think from a fan's perspective, that's why it's so frustrating when Stanton has to take, you're playing him for 2 games and you don't want to put any wear and tear on his knees and whatnot, and then you're losing out on that bat. I mean, listen, in the chunk of a season that John Carlos Stanton he's had 17 home runs. I think currently the Yankees have 5 players that have 20 home runs. I think Wells hit his 20th last year. Obviously, you have Judge. We just talked about Grisham. We got Bellinger. Who's the 5th person? I want to say Rice. Yeah, Ben Rice has 20 home runs. And if you add 2 more, even though he's had a dreadful year for the Yankees, Anthony Volpe still has 19 home runs. So you would think he will be another member of the 20 home run club. Oh, yeah, and Jazz Chisholm. Can't forget about Jazz Chisholm, too. So maybe I counted towards. Maybe it's 6 players that have 20-plus home runs for the Yankees. So, yeah, so this is a really big stretch for the Yankees. And I ultimately, if you guys pick up the paper, which is out now, pick up my latest column of Our Time Press, you'll see that I insisted that this is going to be make or break for the Yankees as far as where they're at in the playoff picture. Again, if they're trying to go to the promised land or they're trying to make a deep playoff run, these are the teams that you're probably going to have to go to. Toronto, Detroit, Boston, Houston. within the past 6 or 7 years, maybe even more than that, Houston has had our number. Houston has had our number. They pretty much beating us every year like we stole something. So um, I think the Yankees really have to play playoff caliber baseball, and we know the offense is going to be there. The concern that I have is whether they're going to get length from their starting pitching because you want to be able to take the load off their bullpen as much as possible. We all know the bullpen for at least a good chunk of the year, if not most of the year, has been erratic to say the least. Despite the bullpen pieces they were able to acquire at the trading deadline, but listen, something's got to give. Um, it's been quite the roller coaster season, and if you really look at the roster, there's not much of a change. And I've said this on countless episodes here. There's not really a significant change with this lineup. There's not a reason why they can't go and score 5.5 runs a game and have solid pitching and able to hand the ball off to Fernando Cruz in the sixth, Weaver in the seventh, Duval in the eighth, and then Bednar in the ninth. That's pretty much what the bridge is going to be like. At least that's what the bridge should be like. The sixth inning, you go obviously pick and choose between. Obviously, it all depends on the game situation as far as the score and the matchups as far as righty and lefties. Obviously, if you have a lead in the fifth inning and you got two lefties coming up, they'll probably put Tim Hill to get those lefties out, and then probably switch up with Mark Leiter Jr. and Fernando Cruz, a combination of those two as far as the middle innings of the game. And then obviously you got Luke Weaver. I'm pretty sure he'll probably be in the midst of those leverage games, although I think it's just best to just keep him. Listen, throw him in the sixth inning with Fernando Cruz and Mark Leiter Jr. And I'm talking about Low-Lev Dev, as I like to call him, because it just the player that sensational closer, that impact closer that we've seen for years is just not there no more. At least for the time being, it's just not there. Again, new city, new league. I get it. It's time to adjust, but we're New Yorkers. We're not trying to hit none of that, man. You come with a big name. You made all this hoopla about, the grooming rule, which was been in place for 50 years. And it just seems like once he complained about it, that's when they decided to change the rule. Okay, well, now you're able to grow facial hair. As long as you keep it nice and well groomed. All right, cool. So we gave him what he wanted, essentially. Now it's time for you to perform. As silly as it sounds, you have to go out there and perform. But the body language, it's just off. There's a lot of pitches that he keeps up over the plate, and especially when you do that to any other hitter, but especially when he seems to he likes to pitch inside two left-handers. That is just a recipe for disaster when you're doing something like that against left-handed hitters. So hopefully the Yankees will be able to salvage the third game and take the 3-game set for them. Again, the pitchers on the mound will be Carlos Rodon against Christian Javier. That game is going to be should be a little after 7:40 from what I'm checking. So should be an exciting game, and hopefully the Yankees could pull it off. So with that said, we're going to go into football, and guys, there's no more boring Sundays anymore. Football is finally here. And I'll tell you one thing. It's easy for people to be like, hey, well, you know what? I'm a Giants fan. I'm a Jets fan. What can we really expect? But I think the one thing, if you really look at from a New York football fan standpoint, I think the number one thing that we wanted, forget about acquisitions and trying to lure in the hottest free agents to come in, try to play. I think the number one thing that New York football fans wanted was change. And I think essentially that's pretty much what we got. Obviously, with the Giants, you got a new quarterback. You drafted a quarterback. We'll see how much Russell Wilson has left in the tank. The Giants got a couple of good pieces in offense. They brought back Darius Slayton, which I think is going to be pretty good. He's always been a decent receiver. Um, you have Jalen Hyatt, who has dealt with some injury issues, but I think the combination of Jalen Hyatt is going to be sensational when it comes to these wide receiving core. And I just look forward to what the Giants are going to do, man. Again, and I'm not gonna go back on my word. I do believe that if the Giants just play their type of football, first of all, this is gonna be. I think this season is gonna be a lot of surprises for Giants fans. I'm not saying they're gonna run with the division by any means, because at the end of the day, I think every Giant fan knows that that division starts with the Philadelphia Eagles. But again, on offense, you have Jalen Hyatt, you got Malik Neighbors, who, in my opinion, if not this year or the following year, he's going to be considered top 5 receiver in all of football. For some reason, the Giants organization, these scouts, they just always seem to strike gold when it comes to these LSU receivers. So it's going to be interesting to see how the season starts. Currently, the Giants are a 6-point road underdog against the Washington Commanders, and that's kind of obvious considering the fact that the Giants lost both meetings to the Commanders last year. But again, the Giants' defense is a lot more different. Um, Health permitting, this should be a team that could at least fight for second. At least fight for second. Because Philadelphia, I think Philadelphia is just going to run away. Barring any injuries, Philadelphia is going to run away with that division. I don't think there's anybody in that division. I mean, Washington, yes. I think we have to see how much of that missed time that Terry McLaurin missed during training camp is going to affect them. It seems like whenever these receivers are not in tune with getting their reps at training camp, it usually takes them a while to gel. But obviously, when they do gel, they're going to be dangerous, and you're pretty much giving Jaden Daniels, who was sensational last year. Um, I was even hearing MVP talks about him last year. So obviously, those two teams are going to be the cream of the crop when it comes to that division. But again, and I said it a few weeks ago on the podcast. Obviously, Dallas got a lot going on with Jerry Jones and the breaking news that I broke within this show last year, as far as them trading Micah Parsons. That was huge. I wasn't expecting that, and it's always cool that I can bring you guys breaking news onto the show. So that was pretty awesome that happened last week. But you ultimately, me personally, I'm not a believer in Dak Prescott. I feel like there's been enough room and enough timetable to realize who he is. And again, there's been sprouts and there's been moments where he's hotter than a fox in a forest fire. He's hot. He has the ability to make these accurate throws, but the issue with him has always been health. And I think the past 3 seasons, he just hasn't been healthy. He had that gruesome ankle injury against the Giants 3 years ago. He's had some arm issues and hamstring issues. So, again, it's just been a whirlwind of injuries with Dak Prescott. And I think when you lose a guy of Michael Parsons' caliber, it sort of affects the offense and the defense too, because it's pretty much the leader of your team, the leader of your franchise. So I don't see. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, because obviously think of Dallas Cowboys, think America's team, and whatnot, and at least for the most part, you would like to see them in the playoff picture, but I just don't see that for the Cowboys. And dare I say, it's going to be a long season for the Dallas Cowboys. I don't want to jinx and say they're going to be in last place, but again, it could probably be a toss-up. To be fair, it probably could be a toss-up as far as the Giants and the Dallas Cowboys goes, as far as like the last place finish. So I don't know how that's gonna go. But again, we have to we have to look at the full course meal, and we have to look at the bigger picture as far as what the Giants, what Giants fans expect, and what could happen. But again, there's three wild card spots, I believe, in East Conference. Correct me if I'm wrong. I could be wrong. But if the Giants are able to capitalize, again, it's a long season. You don't want to wish any ill will as far as like potential injuries that could happen. But and again, the NFC is just so good, man. It's so good. So again, um, it will be a little bit surprising, but I'm gonna stick to my guns. I think it's unfair to just assume that the Giants are gonna make the playoffs. This is obviously a rebuilding year for both New York teams, New York football teams. But again, this is how can I put it? This is let's see if we're going to the towards the right direction. If you're a Giants fan and a Jets fan for that part. So you got Russell Wilson. Obviously, the big question with Russell Wilson is, number one, can he excel in New York? Number two, just how much does he has left in the tank? Um, he had a pretty decent year with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh elected not to bring him back, but okay, little issue that we have here. I do apologize for the technical difficulties. I think we may have just gone on and off a little bit. So basically, what I was reiterating is that the Giants. I like the Giants team. It's very unlikely that they'll make the playoffs, but again, at this point, this is a rebuilding year for both the Giants and the Jets. So I think the number one thing that you want to see is change. And if you're able to win, I think what the Giants won 4 games last year. I think if the Giants can win 6 or 7, you got to count that. And I hate to say it because it's like, well, you can't add losing as winning. I get that, but again, if you're a true, genuine Giants fan, if you're expecting a 12 and 5 season, that's a, that's a little erratic. If you ask me, that's a little erratic. But if you see the improvement and the investment that you counted on by drafting Jackson Dart, then it ultimately becomes a win-win because it's like you're pretty much Russell Wilson is going to be at least for the big chunk of the season. I give it 6 games. I think the Giants are going to give him a 6 game window. If he goes 4-2, I think you have to keep running with him as far as the starting quarterback. If he goes 2-4, I think that's when the Giants are going to go into panic mode and they're going to ultimately insert Jackson Dart. I do think the more the more games that you're able to have Jackson Dart off the field, the more he's able to learn and gravitate towards how to play as far as the speed and quarterback play. I think is going to pay dividends, especially coming from Russell Wilson, who's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer when his career ends, in my opinion. So, yeah, I think this year is pretty much going to be well, obviously we know it's a rebuilding year, but again, you want to be able to see the invest in change that you made. Obviously, Daniel Jones was not the answer. He hasn't been the answer since he's taken over the quarterback. If you ask me, um, but Russell Wilson, I felt was a fair pickup, and I think that depth chart is Wilson. They got Dart at number 2, which I'm a little surprised because usually you think you would go with a veteran at number 2, but I like the fact that they made him the backup with Jameis Winston being a number 3. Uh, no more Tommy Cutlets, but it is what it is. Everywhere where a football team during the season carries 4 quarterbacks on their depth chart, so obviously he was going to be the odd man out within those core of quarterbacks. So again, you want to see the improvement, you want to see the change. I think they have the offense enough to improve. Again, this is not a all-star. This is not a Pro Bowl type of offense. The line should be a little bit better. They also improved on the offensive line, and I think if we want to give Daniel Jones a little bit of a pass, he really didn't have a good offensive line against him. He was pretty much beat up and hit every time. It seems like he was dropping back, but I do expect the offensive line to be a lot better this year, and ultimately, Russell Wilson. He may not have the mobility in the legs like he used to do when he first came in the league with Seattle. But again, he's still a very intelligent quarterback. He still has the ability, in my opinion, to play good football. He proved that during his stint with the Pittsburgh Steelers last year. So it's not about him having the ability to do it. It's I guess essentially it is, but for how long? And what does that look like as far as game to game basis? If he goes out on Sunday against Washington and he has two interceptions in the first half, do the Giants make that move? I don't think so, because these are growing pains, and obviously it takes time for you to ultimately gel with an offense. So I think the Giants. This is all going to be a gelling process. It's a long season, so we're ultimately we're gonna see what this Giant team is made of. Again, my fantasy outlook on both New York teams is them making it as a wild card. Obviously, that is super super wishful thinking, considering the fact that I think both teams had like 7 wins combined, or something like that. I can't remember. I tried to throw last year in the rear view, to be honest, and I think every New York football fan out there would agree with me. But yeah, it's gonna be. It should be. We've had giant New York football fans has had some long years, long football years. But you know, I do think that this year, we may not get the oohs and the ahs that we expect, but I do think when it's all said and done, the record may not indicate the outcome. But I think if the Giants are able to execute and at least show some improvement, because this defense is going to be good. This defense is going to be good. You got Kayvon Thibodeau, and I keep saying it, and I'm going to stick to my guns. It would not surprise me at all if Abdul Carter wins Defensive Rookie of the Year. It would not surprise me at all. He's that damn good. If you take out the two quarterbacks that came out in the draft, well, no, it wasn't. It was Hunter that came out from Jacksonville, and then you had Cam Ward. So if you take those two out, Abdul Carter is the clear-cut number one pick in the NFL in this past year's draft. So the fact that he landed in the Giants' lap at 3 was almost godsend, to tell me the truth. I just think he's so good. We talked about, on the podcast earlier about Michael Parsons. He gives me Michael Parsons vibes. And I know, by me saying that, it may widen some eyes, but I'm telling you, I haven't watched that much Penn State football during the course of the year. But just studying and looking at the highlights from this guy, he is just an absolute stud, and he can go, man. He can go. So, you got Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, Abdul Carter. This Giants defense is going to be so good, so excited. Brian Burns, you got Darius Alexander. This is going to be on paper, because it's easy to say. It's easy for me to be like, hey, bro, they're going to be a better defense. You still got to go out there and play the games, and health permitting, this is going to be a top 10 defense in football. At least it should be. The way it's constructed and the way, they have a combination of youth and veterans. So I like that. It's always a recipe for success when you're able to have that combination on any kind of line, whether it's offensive line or defensive line, or just the offensive core from a generosity standpoint and secondary. But I do like the direction that the Giants are going. I think it was the. I mean, obviously, if you have Abdul Carter sitting there at number 3, you got to pick him up. But in my opinion, when it's all said and done, he's gonna prove to me and everybody out there that he was the best player in the draft. So, dare I say, we may be on the horizon for a 10-sack season. Why not? Why couldn't he do that? Again, for these young players, it's all about adapting to the speed of pro football, transferring from college to NFL. But why couldn't he do that? Why couldn't he do that? You know, I don't see why he couldn't do that. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna stick to my guns and I'm gonna predict that Abdul Carter is going to have a 10 sack season for the New York Giants. And we'll see what comes of that. Again, it should be, I predict an improvement when it comes to the Giants. I do think they'll be better defensively as opposed to offensively. I think offense is where most of the questions is going to go as far as where this team is going to be mid-season. But obviously, once we get to the middle of the season, we'll have an idea of what this Giants team identity is going to ultimately look like. But again, I do expect Jackson Dart to be the starting quarterback somewhere in the second half of the season. So I want to say week 6, week 8, and that's not excluding Russell Wilson. But again, this is not a Pro Bowl caliber team by any means necessary. On paper, it looks like a third place team. I got Philly. Honestly, you know what? My heart says Washington is going to win the NFC East. I don't know why. I just feel like, Philly, when they won the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, the following year they sort of struggled a little bit. So it wouldn't surprise me with all the hoopla and the quote unquote Super Bowl hangover that teams essentially normally has. You may have that little effect, but again, Washington got so much better. They added a Pro Bowl caliber lineman on the offense as far as Laramie Tunzel goes. And then you got another offensive weapon aside from Terry McLaurin and Debo Samuel. There were reports that the Commanders believe that he is 100% healthy and he should be the player that we originally saw during his first few years with the 49ers. So, again, that's all speculation at this point. I mean, listen, it's week 1. Everybody is healthy at this point, or at least should be 100% healthy. Again, it's a grueling season. We'll see what happens within the course of the year as far as where the Commanders land. But just that combination of Debo Samuel and Terry McLaurin. Debo obviously will probably play slot. You could obviously rotate them around and whatnot. And Jaden Daniels is gonna make some noise, man. I do not see a sophomore jinx for him at all. I just feel like when a player performs the way he did last year, it only goes up from there. So I do expect the Commanders to be right there when it comes to the NFC East. And truthfully speaking, the NFC in its entirety. They were one game away from the Super Bowl. They were one game away from the Super Bowl. We'll see if they could run it back and repeat with the performance that they had last year. So, yeah. So, if we're talking about the NFC East, I'm going to go Washington, Philly, and Giants. And again, you got to be realistic. You got to be realistic as far as what is expected. Now, obviously, if you really look at the Giants team on paper, it's easy for anybody to be like, oh, wow, this could probably be a 3-win season. The Giants defense could be the contributing factor of them possibly winning 3-point games, 1-point games. I do think that there's going to be those scenarios in a couple of games that will ultimately decide wins and losses for the Giants. Again, I know playoffs is sort of unlikely, but I don't think any realistic Giant fan is expecting that right off the gate, right off the back. I mean, it will sure as hell be one of the surprises in the NFL in its entirety. But again, with this Giants teams, you really just have to take baby steps. Let's see what Russell Wilson has in the tank. Let's see if Jackson Dart is for real. He had an amazing preseason, super good. But again, preseason is preseason, regular season is regular season. It's totally a different monster. And you're getting hopefully a Jalen Hyatt to go along with Malik Neighbors. So I think Giants fans should be very excited. As far as the New York Jets go, we were just talking about change as far as New York football goes. There's been a lot of changes for the New York Jets. Obviously, they decided to part ways with Aaron Rodgers. There was actually a report that came out today via Rich Cimini about supposedly Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams basically isolating the team and going over plays together and not including the offense. It's so funny. The eve or days prior, all these reports come out and stuff like that. For the most part, as a Jet fan, I hope that's not true. But again, at this point, it's water on the bridge. Come Sunday, he's going to be on the other side, wearing number 8, wearing black and gold. And we're going to see how much of 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers has left. Again, this is another Jets team that's good on defense. They were just 2-3 years removed from being number 3, or I think at one time they were ranked number 1 defense in the NFL. I'm not quite sure what was the issue as far as them not being able to stop the run. They gave up several plays of 20 yards throughout the course of the season. But again, I do expect a lot of improvements, more especially from Sauce Gardner. If you're talking about the defensive side of the ball, Sauce Gardner is locked up for the next 4 years. The Jets signed him to a big money deal. So Sauce Gardner is considered one of the cornerstones of the franchise to go along with fellow wide receiver Gary Wilson. The one question that I've been seeing floating around, and the one that's been reached out to me, is I think a buddy of mine, a former a colleague of mine, told me, "Hey, who do you think this game benefits more as far as quarterback positioning? Aaron Rodgers or Justin Fields?" And I was just at first I'm like, wow, because it's just first and foremost, I'll be honest with you guys, I kind of forgot that the Steelers are playing the Jets in the first week, which marks Aaron Rodgers' return to MetLife Stadium. So I mean, listen, if you want drama, you're gonna get it from that game, especially when you're talking about Aaron Rodgers. No pun intended. But again, that should be an exciting game to unfold. You got Aaron Glenn, first time head coach in the NFL, doing it for his former team that he played with in the New York Jets. We all seen the job that he's done with that Detroit Lions team, one of the most ferocious defense in the league, and should be expected to be the same way this coming year, despite his departure. So hopefully he can bring that same mentality to this New York Jets ball club. And we'll see if he can do it both offensively and defensively. But again, to answer that question, it's clear-cut it's Justin Fields. And I'm going to tell you why. Aaron Rodgers has been in the NFL, 2 decades now? He's broken passing yards. He's got, I'm pretty sure he's broken touchdowns in a season for a franchise and stuff like that. This man has done everything that you need to do to be considered a first ballot Hall of Famer, regardless of, his time in a Jet uniform. Obviously, we would hope that it was a better outcome. The unfortunate injury in his first year, just being able to play 4 games in that first year to a pretty much lackadaisical second year. He did sort of flourish within the last minute of the season. You did see flashes of the old Aaron Rodgers, but at that point, it was too little, too late from the get. The Jets were just really dreadful on both sides of the ball. Again, it's Justin Fields because at this point, this is his football team as far as the offensive side of the ball. He signed a 2-year, $40 million with the Jets. He has a new coordinator, and honestly speaking, this is basically his audition to prove that he is an NFL quarterback. Whereas Rodgers doesn't really have to worry about that. If he gets hurt, we're hoping that's not the case. He's still gonna be a future first ballot Hall of Famer in the next 5 years or whenever he decides to hang it up. For Justin Fields, there's more on the line for him as far as pressure and things of that nature because you're proving yourself to not only a new fan base, but just to the league that you belong. Whereas Aaron Rodgers doesn't necessarily have that pressure. So if you can go in and perform to what we know Justin Fields is capable of, which I think that he's capable of performing, have a decent game where you're sure that you're comfortable in the pocket. You can make those plays that you normally make when you have to be outside the pocket and be mobile and whatnot. And just give the fans something to just cheer for. Because it seems like forever since we had something to cheer for. Sometimes I'm sitting there and I'm playing Madden, and I feel like when I pick the Jets, I don't even hear the fans. Oh, I just, it's more pressure, and it's more. Justin Fields has more to prove when it comes to where he stands as far as being a NFL quarterback. Again, he has that familiarity with Gary Wilson, with them two having played with each other in Ohio State. We'll see. We'll see what happens with Alan Lazard. Alan Lazard, for the most part, has not lived up to that contract that he signed from when they just signed him away from Green Bay. We all know that was pretty much designed for Aaron Rodgers. But for the most part, Alan Lazard will probably be your second best receiver if we were looking to see how that roster is. But again, we'll see what the Jets are made of. Obviously, when you talk about the East, as far as the AFC, Buffalo is going to be the cream of the crop. We'll see how that Miami Dolphins team looks like. There was obviously a lot of noise as far as Tyreek Hill and his post game interviews, especially last year, about his desire to play for Miami. And then news broke out earlier this week about his teammates not voting him as one of the team captains on offense. I don't know how that affects a player psychologically, whether players care about that, whether they take pride on that. At the end of the day, you still have to go out and play the games. So again, we'll see how that unfolds. But obviously, if you are thinking about the AFC East, Buffalo should be the clear-cut winner in the AFC to come out of the AFC East division, barring any injuries. But for the Jets, man, I want to be realistic. It looks like a 5-win team. I don't see them winning any more like that. It's just because they're in a very difficult division. We don't know what we're going to get out of Justin Fields. We don't know what version of the Jets defense we're going to get, whether we're going to get the defense that we got from 2-3 years ago, or we're going to get the defense that we got. Again, if there's anybody that's going to be the catalyst to clean that up, I would think it would be Aaron Glenn. But we'll see what happens. So, again, the Giants will play the Washington Commanders. That game will be live from Washington. It's a Sunday at 1 o'clock start. And The Jets will host a familiar foe in Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. That game will be also on Sunday at 1 o'clock. But if you guys can't wait until Sunday, there is a game slated on the schedule tonight as the Philadelphia Eagles, the defending champion Philadelphia Eagles, will host the Dallas Cowboys in the first game of the NFL season tonight. Man, I'm so pumped. Football is finally here. Let's go. Let's get it. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you guys on the next one.